Hey guys, hey Kevin.
Hi everyone.
Hi everyone.
I say we wait for a few more minutes until all the speakers will join us.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, thanks for having me, by the way.
Hi
Um,
everyone.
could be
Hi
interesting today.
everyone.
I say we wait for a few. Nice, nice. Hey Kevin, hey Rahul.
Hi,
You
Hi
guys,
everyone.
hey Mustafa.
hi Sachin,
Hi,
hi
hi.
Kevin.
How are you guys doing?
Pretty good. How are you?
Can't complain. What about you?
I'm good, good. Where are you based?
Austria. And you guys?
I'm in
I
Dubai.
am from, yep,
I'm in the UK, if this is working.
Yeah.
I'm
Awesome.
from India.
Nice, nice. I'm from Prague. So let's see if we have everybody here. We should have Renat. I don't know if Renat is here. Renat's probably not here. We should have Kevin. Kevin is here. We should have Mustafa. He's here. Rahul and Mr. Pate G. Beck, who is also here. Nice. Artem, are we waiting for Renat or should we start? Nice. In this case I'll start. So thank you gentlemen for joining me here today. It's a real honor to having you here today. We will be doing a little bit AMA for smart contracts. We're going to be discussing this from the zero to very 100. And before I will start with the topics, I want to do a little bit a round of introductions. So first of all, we have Kevin Riedel, who is the founder of Wave Act. Thank you very much for joining us. We have Mustafa, who is a senior blockchain dev at Snap Innovations. We have Mr. Page G. Peck, who is a smart contract developers, and we have Rahul Gupta, who's SD at Coinhard. Thank you very much for joining me today, gentlemen.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for
Thank
having
you.
us.
Thanks for
Yeah,
the invitation.
so let's start with the very basics, right? Let's start with the very simple question. I'm going to ask you questions. First one very simple, then we're going to make them more complicated, and then I'm going to give each one of you a time to share your opinion or your perspective or your experience on those questions. So let's start with the most simple one, right? Let's start with what is actually a smart contract, right? How do you define it? Let's start with Kevin.
Yeah, great question. Basically, it's always kind of hard. I think most of you know this feeling. If a topic actually can be very complicated to break it down in very simple terms, I think I would start with basically a smart contract is best described by its own set of by its term itself, right? It's a set of rules saved onto the blockchain. Basically, it's just also implemented programmed code on the blockchain which defines certain rules. And everyone who actually participates in that contract has to, I would say, obey those rules if implemented correctly.
Mhm. Okay, nice. Rahul, do you agree with this definition? Do you have something to add?
You could think about smart contracts as like a normal code that you write on any other language, but then on non like on other platforms you cannot you can change that code, but on blockchain, if you're not allowed to change that code. So yeah, basically pretty much normal code that can never be changed, and it will work as it was described.
Beautiful, beautiful. Then I'm gonna toss it next to Mustafa. Mustafa, what are actually the benefits of smart contracts compared to the traditional programs or traditional applications, traditional algorithms, or just the traditional contracts that we're using, like a paper contract with each other? What's the benefit of why do we need it?
I guess the first thing is that smart contracts are auto enforced, so you don't have to go to a legal entity and tell them, hey, the other party did not honor their part, so I want to sue them. This is not the case here. So if it's your right to get something from that contract, you will get it. There is no other way. No one can change it, no one can say otherwise. But beside that, like if we compare it to like software that we already have, there are like few things that I can say about it. Like the first thing, I guess, is data security. So we have a very as I see it, it's a very good, safe, and secure database. So we can save data there and have it forever, and we don't pay any kind of fee for maintenance or anything. Just one time fee we pay, and then it's there forever, and no one can change it. Everyone can see it. So the next thing is transparency, so everyone can see. So I cannot hide anything from anyone. So if it's on blockchain, everyone can see it. It doesn't matter what kind of information it is, but any kind of information that I can store on blockchain can be seen by anyone. So for me, the most important part is we have a very good server and a database, and practically limitless processing power, plus zero fee for maintenance. So we can scale as much as well. Like technically, I'm saying, of course there is lots of other things that we should taking into an account when we want to say scaling on blockchain. But anyway, technically there is no limit on scaling. So if your application needs a lot of processing power, a lot of new data to be stored, like lots of concurrent uh, users need to be served, it's there. Like you have it without any second thing thought about uh, buying a new server, scaling your current infrastructure, hardware or software or anything. So this is, I guess, one of the few of the good benefits of smart contracts.
That's a beautiful and really good explanation and very in depth. Thank you, Mustafa. I'm gonna toss that same question to Mr. Tate GPEG.
Hi, everyone.
Hi.
So, I think one of the main benefits of smart contracts is that they do exactly what they're supposed to every single time. So, if you've coded it correctly, there are no disagreements that can be made after, as long as we agree on what was made in the first place, because the contracts are normally immutable. We're absolutely clear on what it can do from what it can't do. So
Hmm.
this is really important when you're dealing with clients, especially with somebody wants, like if you want a financial program, you don't want things like abnormalities where you have unexpected issues, not being able to withdraw your own funds as the person that owns the contract, or not being able to withdraw your funds as like a payee or something. So smart contracts are a very good implementation of code that will never change, assuming that's what you need for your business or service.
Nice. All right. Thank you. One more thing, gentlemen. There are a lot of you, and there are a lot of questions. So sometimes I'm going to be like asking a question to all of you, or sometimes I'm going to be asking a question for like some of you. And if there are some people who actually have anything to add, and I missed you, and you have some additional information there, just feel free to jump in to say something. And yeah, I'm going to give you a word there as well. But for now, as you mentioned, that the smart contract is a set of rules and set of algorithms, and all of the information is highlighted and written on blockchain, and everybody can see it. So what about sensitive information, right? What about some legal contracts or some medical information that is not supposed to be on public? How do you deal with the GDPR, right, with the EU regulations? with some private information that is actually not supposed to be on public, but somehow needs to be automated via smart contracts. Rahul, what do you think?
So ideally you're not supposed to put private information on public blockchains, but then if you are still willing to put private information on blockchains, then you can go for private blockchains, which can only be operated by specific organizations, and then that information can only stay between those organizations, but it will still create that trust of transparency, uh, since all the data will still be on the blockchain. So that trust will stay between these organizations.
Mhm. Nice, nice. Mustafa, what do you think? Or Kevin? So it's an open question to everybody. What about the private information? How can you handle the private information on public blockchains?
I guess, yeah, there are like few ways that we can like approach this. The first thing is, as Raul said, we shouldn't use public blockchains for private and sensitive information. We can use like things like, I don't know, Hyperledger, or things that we have more control on. But another thing is that we could use like techniques that we already have, like differential privacy, things like that, that could somehow encrypt those kind of data that we want to put on public blockchains, in order to have it on blockchain, but not publicly available for everyone. So everyone can see it, but no one can understand it, unless those people who have that, let's say, a key in order to unlock those information and then see what's in there. But like generally for public blockchains, the whole point is to be transparent. But those sensitive information could use it still the same way, that because if it's sensitive, it should be centralized. It should be controlled over. But there are, as I said, few approaches that we can take. But I guess the best one could be somehow encrypting all those information and putting it on blockchain.
All right. Kevin, Mr. GPEG, what is your opinion? Do you have something to add, or do you think that the gentleman covered it all? Should the sensitive information be centralized and
Yeah.
right?
In general, the first thing I would always ask is, what's your use case for that, right? Why do you actually, what's the purpose of that private data set, right? Is it some personal information or whatsoever? And depending on that, as Mustafa just said, you basically can go with some more centralized solutions. Maybe there's a way to utilize oracles for that, because you basically just want some uh, result based on private data. So you actually don't need the private data itself, but a result based on that. Or if it has something to do with authentication, maybe signatures and requesting that data off chain in a more centralized manner, for example, can be also sufficient. So what I want to say is, in the end, there might be other solutions as well, for sure, with some disadvantages as well. So everything that happens off chain is more centralized for sure. But yeah, in the end, if you are talking about private data, you want to keep it private. So
Mm-hmm.
Um,
be other solutions as well, for sure, with
Oops,
some
I'm sorry.
disadvantages as well.
That was my fault. Fine. So it does seems like there is, for example, the medical industry cannot really execute this in a full decentralized manner. So it's mostly about which sectors are using the blockchain. So some sectors are more uh, they're more open to it. They're more efficient with the blockchains, and some tech sectors are not. Do you agree with this? And if yes, for which sectors do you think smart contracts are particularly important? Mr. GPEG.
so I think smart contracts are very important in terms of like finance and decentralized finance. That's where most of them shine, because you want things to be automated in a way where I don't need to trust you as a human. I need to trust the code that's in front of me so that we can both interact with it in a really fair and safe way. Because when you're dealing with like purchasing things over the internet or just securing financial transactions, that's very difficult to do if there isn't a layer of trust that allows people to just interact anonymously, especially when you're working in an environment that isn't necessarily regulated. So I think DeFi is the best use case for smart contracts.
Rahul, do you agree with this?
Yes.
Beautiful, Mustafa. What about you?
Yeah, for sure. You know, as he said that, yeah, you know, the whole point of using blockchain and smart contracts is to do things in a trustless way. So the most important, key factor in finance is trust. So if we remove that, so we have a very open environment to play with. So of course, finance would be one of the biggest one, and that's why it got lots of attention during past few years. And besides that, there are like lots of other things. I guess that would be uh, joining this technology, using this technology in order to uh, um, utilize and leverage this blockchain features in order to uh, bring the best of their services. Like for example, in DAOs could be like game changer here, because like in case of contributing and participating, being in some being part of something, and we need to have this. Voting system. We need to have a like democratic way of saying our our mind, that what we think, and what's your our decision, and what's our vote regarding to some specific thing. So this is one of the other thing that I guess blockchain could help us a lot, because right now the like these kind of use cases are very limited, as they need to have with great power comes great responsibility. We need like a community which understand this responsibility. We need people to like when you live in a civilized society, you need to respect some kind of laws, some kind of rules there. So it's the same thing here. I should know my part inside this. I need to contribute. I need to know like when can I exercise my right in order to say something, to in order for a contract to change, for something to become better. I need to first educate myself, then contribute this to my community. So this is why DAOs could be like very game changing in future. This is why DeFi's are there, because money is the first and most important thing that everyone can understand. If it gives me money, it's good. So I will go and learn it, like how I can use it, how I can participate in this money game, whatever it is, because it has its own benefit. So DeFi could actually carry all this load right now in order to teach people about this trustless world that we are entering to. But there would like be lots of other sectors that could come in and play with.
Nice. I love how we're bringing Spider-Man references into our smart contract conversation. I think Uncle Ben would be really proud of us here. Kevin, what do you think? What industries aside from finance could leverage smart contracts?
Yeah, in general, I think it's a two-edged sword, right? We have that one side, as it always has been, where you basically say, uh, do we need blockchain here, right? And if yes, then how are we gonna utilize it? And as we just saw last year, DeFi is one of the strongest use cases for that, right? I think everyone agrees on that. That's a no-brainer almost. But on the other side, what we see right now and also saw partially last year is that increasingly the question if blockchain is actually needed, uh, in my opinion, it's still super relevant because if you don't need it, why using it, right? Blockchain devs are usually quite expensive. But just looking at, for example, NFTs or GameFi, right? Why the hell do you need blockchain here? There's actually no reason for that, but it makes things easier. It makes things probably more fun, more exchangeable, more extendable, more interoperable, because you can interact with other systems more easily. You basically, yeah, just have a more can have a more connected ecosystem and more instruments basically. If we look at the huge brands right now which utilize NFTs basically not to establish trust but to establish a connection to their brand, to build communities, to build stronger a more loyal customers. And I think that's one way we might go into mass adoption probably. Blockchain will always be have that huge use case from DeFi, supply chain, and others, where data integrity, smart contracts, trustless systems are super important. But like just said, like pointed out, GameFi and NFTs, branding, marketing, other use cases, I call it use cases right now, can become or could become more relevant because it's more tangible for most companies, because not every company has to deal with huge sums and establish and work with
Mm.
non-trusted parties, and probably that's the way to get more people into crypto.
Nice. So let's say this. So smart contract, it's a sort of algorithm or some logic that allows different participants in blockchain to talk to each other to execute certain actions. But what happens when you need to engage with something that is outside of the blockchain, right? How can you communicate with some of the external parties, with some of the external databases? Is that possible with smart contracts? Mr.
So,
Jipek, I'm going to throw it to you first.
So yes, it's possible. We have things like Chainlink, which is an implementation of a data oracle. So if you wanted to import real life data or get like a real random number, because those don't actually exist on the blockchain, then you can use the Oracle service to import real life data. So you could import the like what clouds or what temperature it was in a specific city, or like what the weather was across the globe. If you want to get that type of real life information, you need an Oracle service, which is quite often Chainlink because it's the most popular and like well known one, but there are many others.
All right. Gentlemen, open question to everybody. Can someone explain to me what's the logic behind Chainlink? How does it operate and how it communicate the blockchain with some external databases, some information from there?
So I will go with that. So actually I'm officially a Chainlink advocate. So I love Chainlink because it's actually the concept of bringing off chain data into blockchain is awesome, like simply awesome, because this way we have exactly the same amount of flexibility that we have with the regular applications. So what happens inside like this oracles like Chainlink is that they have like different nodes, like lots of nodes that run this program. So these programs could be these nodes could be programmed, could run any kind of uh, program to import, to get some kind of information from anywhere, from any kind of server, from any API, from anything. So they get the information. Like, for example, if we want to get the price of a specific asset, we just call it like regularly when we dealing with a normal application, we just get an API or pay for an API, and then use the data from there in order to show the information, or process in any way we want. But in case of like blockchain, we need to verify and prove that. So in order to prove that this data has not been tampered with, has not been manipulated with, while it's coming to the blockchain, is to having implementing exactly what blockchain does. It verify it through different sources. For in case of chainlink, through different nodes. So different nodes gets the same data and checks, like the chainlink actually checks if all of those information that they got from like different nodes are the same. If they are the same, so they are but I don't want to talk about the underlying technology that Chainlink comes to this consensus. But anyway, so when it reaches this consensus that all of this information are like correct, then it passes into the blockchain. So the data becomes on-chain data. So that this way we could have any kind of information that we want, and we can process it inside our smart contract in order to do some specific use case that we have. So practically we could use anything. So there are like few services that these oracles actually, yeah, there are like I should mention there, besides Chainlink, there are on-chain um, price feed oracles coming to play, like Uniswap, the Uniswap Twap, like oracle, like but they are specifically for prices, and there are like much pair that you can find on Uniswap. You can get the price feed there, but that's just for the price feed. But with Chainlink, we can have not just uh, information from outside, from off chain into the into blockchain, but also we could have other off chain information that we might not be able to get it on chain. For example, random numbers. So the random numbers are things that you cannot have in a deterministic system like blockchain. So in blockchain, everything is predictable. Everything is set to be like processed, and everyone can see it, so everything can be predicted. But and that's why we cannot have a truly random number. In this case, Chainlink comes to play. So we can use Chainlink in order to have a verifiable random number and use it inside our contract, which is very, very, very much used inside when you are developing, especially on DeFi. This would be a challenge for you to come up with a random number in order to process something. So this kind of information, we need a source, a verifiable and uh, you know reliable source like Chainlink, like an oracle, in order to get all those information. That's why. These oracles like Chainlink actually bring down this
Mhm.
barrier between off-chain data and on-chain.
Nice. Well, there's a lot of cool things. There's smart contracts. There's an on-chain data. There's an off-chain data. There are oracles, DAOs, DeFi's. A lot of exciting stuff. But how do you actually create it, right? You can. There are various blockchains with various programming languages. Starting from Solidity to Rust. I heard someone is doing this with JavaScript. I believe there is an application on Cosmos that allows JavaScript programmers to do smart contracts. What is your opinion on this? Like, what programming language is actually the best for creating smart contracts or decentralized applications? Or do you think there's one that's better than the other or like more efficient? Kevin?
Dangerous question. Because every programming language has advantages and disadvantages, and there are also other nuances to it. Basically, if we look at JavaScript, TypeScript, for example, which is one of the most, it's basically the most used programming language worldwide for for different reasons, and for all possible applications, for apps, for backends, for front ends, as you just said, even for smart contracts. And that's because, sorry, that's because the ecosystem of JavaScript, TypeScript is so large. There's so much support. If you have a question, you just Google it and you get the answer, right? But that's just one factor which makes a good programming language. The other factor is for sure performance, scalability. How easy is it to learn? If we look at Rust, for example, I love it, but yeah, as every programmer knows, it's different. It's you can learn it for sure, but it has a different mindset, basically, right? You just can't start typing it just with Python or TypeScript, for example. But yeah, it also has a larger entry barrier. So that's one of the reasons why Solana, Luna, and so on had it a little bit harder to grow the ecosystem. And the more impressive it was, or it was basically in terms of both of them, that they grew that large, right? I think that's the most important factor here. And Solidity has the advantage. It has a large ecosystem. It has, also it is somewhat similar to JavaScript, TypeScript in terms of feeling, syntax at least. And yeah, I'm not a huge Solidity advocate, but I think it's gonna be very difficult to replace it.
Nice. All right. I'm gonna toss it to Rahul. What do you think?
I think Solidity is the best programming language in terms of EVM compatible blockchains. And then if you go for other blockchains like Solana, then Rust is a good language actually. When you try to code on it, I've tried that for some time. But then Solidity is far better, and it's like being used on a larger scale. As Kevin said, it has a wider user base, wider developer base. And then since it is coming from the world of JavaScript, and on the back end you have this Solidity smart contract. On the front end you can just integrate it with JavaScript. It becomes pretty easy, and it becomes pretty easy for Web 2 developers to transition into Web 3. So
Mhm.
I would say Solidity is far better in terms of developer adoption.
Okay. It looks like it's the smart contracts, they they need to be secure, right? Because they're executing a lot of logic. You don't want to end up in a situation where certain transactions are happening that is not supposed to be happening. Or you don't want to end up in a situation where some parties are trying to hack it, are trying to break it, trying to bypass it, trying to leverage some of the inconsistencies in the logic in the code. So let's talk about the safety of smart contracts, right? Are there standards for smart contracts in terms of safety on how you should be developing it? Open question. So whoever wants to pick it up.
So, within the NFT space, I don't think there's necessarily standards for smart contracts, but people have started to recognize that there are like popular vulnerabilities, things like not having a reentry guard for your smart contracts because Solidity has specific bugs that need to be patched if you're attempting to do certain things. So I think from a security point of view, there are popular things that people protect themselves from, but there's not really a standard that everyone is aware of or tries to follow.
Hmm. Any other opinions? Kevin, Mustafa, Rahul? Do you think there are any standards for smart contracts that people should be following to make sure it stays safe
Yeah.
and secure?
So on the contrary, there are pretty much standards that have been put out by um, Ethereum improvement proposals. I would talk in terms of EVM. So EVM blockchain. So mostly you could see those ERC standards that are ERC 20, ERC 1155, ERC 721. These are the pretty basic standards for your tokens that are supposed to be present on any token that is being used on a blockchain. Pretty much so, because these are like standards. These are basically standardized so that everyone can create their own token and their own project without falling into the trap of security issues. So they'll not have to take more care of the security issues. Instead, they can already modify these existing standard code and build more functionality and features on top of these standard codes.
Hmm.
But then there are also coding standards in terms of re-entrancy and more in other practical like high level security issues and low level security issues and information security issues. So those are pretty much the standards that we're supposed to follow as a developer in order to maintain the security of the smart contract.
Okay. Are there any, let's say, legal? I'm sorry. Let's just say, are there any auditing entities for smart contracts that could,
Of course,
verify and make sure that you did a good job?
of course, there are so many auditing entities for smart contract that are available. The first one would be Tech Shield. Then you have, just sure if I remember the name exactly,
30K.
Certic, right? Yes. So there's that. And then there are a lot of companies, small startups, small and big companies that are doing smart contract auditing based on this pretty much standards that are present out there.
Hmm. Okay. Well, in a traditional contract world, there are always constant disputes about whether logic was executed correctly, whether it should have been done or whether it should not have been done. And we always have some lawyers who dispute certain actions, and they go to courts, and it might take years and years and years to follow up on some gray zones and to come up with some certain decision, which might be contradictory to some of the parties. So how do you envision smart contract world and legal world colliding with each other in the future, if we think that uh, there's going to be like mass adoption of smart contracts?
That's
So
actually, sorry, go
yeah,
on.
go ahead. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Mr. Deepak.
Oh, that's to me.
Oh
So
wait, who wanted to speak first? Was that Kevin? I'm sorry,
It
I
is
didn't. I
Kevin,
don't.
yeah.
I don't care. Go on. It's fine. Make a discussion.
oh, I was just gonna say that I think in the real world, people need to recognize that legislation already exists and it won't be thrown away because someone writes a program, which is what a smart contract is, to then say, okay, cool, we agreed to do X, Y, and Z. I think smart contracts have their place, but they'll still be legislated based on what currently exists because the world wants things to be easier and they don't want to try and relearn things as they currently are. So in terms of like, can I use a smart contract to justify a purchase for a house? Probably not, because wherever you buy that house, they might they most likely have laws that dictate you need to go through certain paperwork and fulfill certain things to actually own the house. Like smart contracts don't bypass laws as they are, and I think that's what a lot of people think of when they first talk about how both of those things will interact. Smart contracts are not necessarily law, and just because something's written in the code and it's working as intended, doesn't necessarily mean that holds up in a court. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah,
What,
sure.
I just want to
Oh,
add
sorry, Mustafa.
something to it. But I guess the smart contracts could be, used as like other technologies that they are, referencing in a court. Like, I don't know, a WhatsApp message, a Telegram message, or something like that, in order to, as a proof or something like that. But the whole idea of a smart contract is to be the single source of truth, but having it like having everyone using it right now, having everyone understand it, what but it has its not yeah, yeah, not a good way to locate it, at least not right now. But I guess it could be used if like there is no legality in here. It's just yeah, my optimism regarding to smart contract, that it could be used as other technologies in a court. So if you have like an email and you can show it in court as a proof, so you can also refer to data which is stored on a smart contract as well, I guess.
Sure. The counter argument here would be that, for example, in the traditional world, if you disagree with some of the decision that is written in the contract, you might just say, I'm not going to pay it. It's my bank account. Nobody's touching it. I'm not sending you money until the judge tells me that I owe you money, right? But in a smart contract, the money is just being taken from your account, from your wallet. It's being sent to the other wallet. And, there's not really a point where you can say that, it's not legally binding because the money has already been sent. And for very easy transactions, for very easy logic, that might be the case. But for more complex, for example, insurance, right? It's a very easy transaction, yet there's still a lot of legal precedents that are happening on daily basis, and people are suing each other. Do you envision, more complicated logic, smart contracts being with a lot of variables going into the decision making, being implemented as smart contracts in the future? Kevin, I'm going to give the word to Kevin because he was the first one to
Oh,
say
good.
something, and then I gave it to everybody else except him.
Oh, good. Yeah, I think in general, smart contracts and law is a super interesting question because the law itself usually has a very fussy definition of things. And it's important that it is the way it is. Just imagine of the very, very super simple law, you are not allowed to kill someone, right? Just imagine if you have to be specific here, you have to exhaustively list all ways of killing someone. And I think the history has shown that there are more ways to kill someone than maybe than there are words in the dictionary, right? So uh, law will remain the way it is just because of its own nature, and regular traditional contracts as well, because it's some sort of a bridge to make the law more specific, to narrow down certain rules which are specific to your current use case. And the smart contracts might be, in my humble opinion, a tool to extend these real world contracts to execute certain logic. And how complex that can be, I think that's up to imagination and how much gas you're willing to pay, basically, if it's a public blockchain and the kind of blockchain you're using. But in general, sure, why not? As long as you can establish these rules in a predictable, deterministic, and secure manner, right? Because usually, in that specific use case, you have to depend on real world data, probably as well, if something has been delivered or whatsoever. And yeah, that has to be implemented as well. And that's then always the question, why make it on blockchain? Or basically reformulate it, what criteria have to be on the blockchain, what criteria can't be in a smart contract.
Okay, can you, is like, technically, is it possible to implement a logic, for example, that in a smart contract, the certain action has happened, the transaction has happened, person A sent person B money when action X has happened. Is it
Sure.
possible to implement, let's say, on a technical level, a logic where it says that this can be reversed if judge says that this transaction could not have happened? And how do you do it?
How I'm going to do it? It has never been done before, so that's more rhetorical right now because I will never know how is the actual let's put it that way. Basically, I don't know exactly how to do it because I don't know what kind of requirements that decision or consequences that decision will have, and what are the legal requirements for that. But in general, from a pure technical standpoint, we already heard you can access real world data, and yeah, the lawmakers can provide data as well to the blockchain. So basically, uh, if the lawyers just push the decision onto the API or even the blockchain itself, then yeah, sure, you can use it and the smart contract does something. So that should be fairly easy. But how you do it in a reliable, legal, secure, deterministic manner and so on is a
Mm.
different thing.
Oh,
Um, so
yeah.
I just want to say, I think there is a way to do that sort of transaction, assuming that you trust a real life human being. Because let's talk about NFTs because NFTs are very easy, like to understand. If I was to give you a smart contract and you were to buy an NFT from like me or somebody else, that NFT could have a clause in place on it that says, for whatever reason, if I need to initiate the transaction and retrieve that NFT from you within the next 30 days because you've initiated a refund or something like that, that can happen. And you can code that in the initial smart contract to where the transfer functions are set up in a way where they can be called by the person that owns the smart contract. So they're the arbiter of that transaction, that scenario. But it can be done. It's just extremely complicated when you're talking about like individual finances that are coins and not like individual tokens like NFTs. That's where it becomes a lot more uh, complicated. Sorry.
Okay. I'm going to, like, as we're running out of time, I'm going to ask you one last question to everybody, and you don't feel free to take as much time as you would like answering this. But this is going to be a hypothetical question to you. Let's say you have a friend, right, who's coming to you tomorrow. He's a very technical guy. You can tell it to him, but he's not in the smart contract world, right? And he's asking you, what one programming language should he start learning today so he could land a smart contract developer or blockchain developer job tomorrow? What do you recommend to him? We'll start with Rahul.
So, if you're just going to be a blockchain developer, then the best language to start with would be Solidity. And if you want to do it on, if you want to do it on EVM, then it's Solidity. If you want to do it on Solana, then it's Rust. But then, if you want to also work on the back end or the front end part of smart contract development, like just after smart contract development, how do you build it out into a proper dApp with the proper user experience and all? Then you can also go with JavaScript, and those are the two languages that I would recommend. Those are the three languages that I would recommend in order to for someone technical to start into the Web3 world.
Hmm. Kevin?
Yeah, for smart contract development, definitely Solidity. It's basically the JavaScript for smart contracts. For the front end, as you might guess right now, TypeScript with React. That's the most used library, to say it correctly. And for the real backend, like blockchain backend, basically, if you want to work on Geth and so on, probably Go, Rust, which can also be used, as we heard, for smart contracts and so on.
Mr. Jupek, what do you think? What would you recommend?
So I think it should be Solidity and JavaScript in terms of if you want to just do smart contracts and you don't want to do any website things, learn Solidity, especially over Rust, because I found Rust personally very difficult to learn, and the reward is it didn't seem as valuable considering how long it takes me to personally learn Rust. Whereas you can do more in a shorter period of time with Solidity, and it's not as complex for the average person to get their head around. So that's my answer for that part. And in terms of like other languages that might help, JavaScript is definitely the most important one in my opinion because it will allow you to like be more general purpose and you can build websites with it. You can do the interactions with um, Ethereum's API, and it's just an all-around good tool considering that JavaScript and Solidity are so similar.
Nice, beautiful. Mustafa, what about you?
Yeah, I'm going with Solidity and JavaScript as well because these two are actually the main thing if you want to work with, yeah, in Web3 sphere. So Solidity for Java for blockchain development, of course, and for web, I guess the best thing is JavaScript, like any sort of JavaScript, like any platform you would use, any environment like React, Vue, Next, whatever. Just JavaScript you have to be there because if you want to do Web3, it's JavaScript. It's that.
Beautiful, beautiful. Well, thank you very much for your time, gentlemen. Mustafa, Kevin, Rahul, Mr. GPEG, really appreciate joining me today at this beautiful Saturday evening. And yeah, thank you very much, and have a good evening, to everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Bye.
guys.
Likewise. Thank
Thank
you.
you, guys. Bye.
Yeah.
Bye.